All right, Devlog for March 2023. So I have been working on the shipped build for the game. I am completely done with the demo in terms of content. I have finished the last things last month. And like I said last month, I was gonna go and test the shipped build of the game to see if it actually like works and runs outside of the editor. It didn't. It actually crashed a lot, and that's because of I basically discovered a certain thing that I really should have known 3 years ago when I started working on like Unreal stuff. Yeah. So what is different in the ship build compared to the editor build? So the shipped build has a different garbage collector. So garbage collection is a software term for it's basically a piece of software that constantly runs and it basically checks all like objects in the game and sees if it's still being referenced. If it's not being referenced, then it needs to be deleted because, well, it's not in use. So it's basically for to save memory. Now, what I discovered is that you need to. What I discovered was that Unreal objects that are blueprint based need to have a U property flag in their initialization of the variable. If you don't put U property in front of this, garbage collector will not keep track of the variable and it will basically delete it the moment it can. So I decide now. Important to note is if the class is fully C++ based, you don't have to do this. Like I can actually remove this from this just fine because this is completely C++ based. So I can just remove U property from here. But I'm not gonna I don't think it's like costs me any performance to have U property. Maybe it does, but not enough to be of a concern. I'll talk about performance as well. So I decided to take a week off and basically fix everything. Like not everything, but so I would give, I've said this before, I would give the code, at least last like a few weeks ago, I would give the code base like a 7 out of 10. There are some problems with the code base that I really needed to fix and I didn't like, and I basically took a week off and I completely focused on working away as much technical debt, because that's basically what it was technical debt away, and I think I'd say my code is now like an 8.5. So I'm going to say all the things I did. This isn't going to be a very interesting demo because I'm just going to go purely talk about coding and not really much about content. Let's talk about coding. So the first thing I did is I got rid of blueprints. Like I'm so sick and tired of blueprints. They just are so unreliable compared to C++ classes, and it really bothered me. So blueprints are for 99% done. So pretty much everything that used to be blueprints is now fully in C++ classes, and it is way better. So if I go to my first level, you can actually see in the world outliner like which classes are C++. So if it's white or gray, that means it's C++. If it's blue, that means it's blueprints. Almost everything is C++. And I am very happy with it because every single blueprints just bother me. I mean, not these are, this is a decorative object, so I don't really care about decorative objects. They're not being like replicated. So when I say replicated, I mean like things that are actually being kept track of in the game and things that interact with stuff. And pretty much all of the things that are still blueprints are just purely cosmetic. So they're not replicated, so I don't really have a risk of the pointers to them losing it or something or whatever. So yeah, this did mean, and this is why I had to take a week off, that every time when I made a C++ version of an old blueprint class, I had to go through the entire level and manually replace every single freaking. So, for example, lamp. Let's see, how many lamps are there? Lamp. There are about 160 lamps. I had to replace 160 lamps in this level. So yeah, it honestly didn't take that long. It took 2 days for me to completely, and when I say 2 days, I mean 2 full working days. Like usually when I say a day, I mean just in a few hours in the week, evening when I can work on the game. No, 2 full working days, and I was able to replace all of the replicated like gameplay actors to C++ and replace them in all levels. that was done pretty quickly. So that's the first major thing that was done. So if I go to my CPP classes folder, so this is where I basically dump all of my inherited like specific classes. So this is all like content basically. This is content classes, and these classes outside of it are framework classes. I'll make that a bit clearer later on. So yeah, doors are now C++. So here are the doors. Lamps are in here as well. They're here. Yeah. Elevators, switches, all triggers, very important. Probably the most important thing that I've changed is the way triggers are. I not. Triggers also used to be blueprints, and that really bothered me. And also, I've added a new editor functionality that really helps. So I've already talked before about how I added a line trace when you click on the trigger, so you can see where it is connected to. Except it only worked on a single trigger at a time, and it was kind of like awful. Now, if I click on any gameplay object, boom, a spider web of triggers basically shoots out, which allows me to perfectly see in just one look. I can see immediately what everything is connected to. And if I don't press on a gameplay actor, they will be gone. So whenever I click on an actor that I need to know which could be connected to things, it's just beautiful. So yeah, this actually also allowed me to find a bunch of like things that weren't connected to anything. So yeah. This is gonna really help in the future. Like, this is a really important thing that not only did this really help me with replacing all of the actors and checking if everything was correct, this is gonna help me a lot in the future, because there are some fights, especially in like the final level in the demo, that are so complex that, because what I had to do before this is I literally had to go to an actor and then go to its settings and then see like, oh, what is this connected to? Okay, and then what is this connected to? And it was a nightmare. But yeah, now I can see things. Good. So that was another important thing that I changed. Another important thing that I changed is, let's see what I'm let's talk about the character. So I'm just gonna quickly spawn in a character. Let's just go spawn in a trooper. Doesn't matter. So another thing that I've changed is I've changed the collision channel of the actor. So a entity. This is actually in every game. An entity actually consists of two different hitboxes. You have the movement hitbox, which is this capsule right here, and then you have, I actually can't for sure. Okay, I actually have to think. It's creatures, enemies. Yes. Fury. Actually, let's not pick the Fury. Wrong. Okay. And then you have the hurt box. Okay, so this is the collision boxes for damaging. So this is what melee attacks register, explosive attacks register, bullets hit, impacts, and projectiles impact. That is what this collision class is. Now, I'm going to call the movement capsule the movement pill, and I'm going to call this the hurt box, just for clarity. Pill, hurt box, pill, hurt box. Okay. So what was the problem? The problem is that the pawn and the hurt box, the pill and the hurt box both use the same collision channel. And that caused a lot of problems, because I had to basically make sure that every time when I was tracing or looking for a hurt box, for a collision box, I had to make sure that my bullets were not impacting the pill, and that, for example, triggers weren't reacting to the hurt box. So I have finally changed the collision, and I've added an extra collision. So if I just quickly go to a static mesh actor, and I can go to collision. Collision. Oh my God. I hate collision. Custom. There we go. So what I have here is now I have pawn movement. So pawn movement is a new movement. Is a new trace class, a new collision channel class that basically handles character movement. So that's now basically on the server. So pawn right here, pawn, this is what the hurt boxes use, and this is what the pill use. So yeah. this does two things. This allowed me to clean up a whole lot of code that was basically making sure that I wasn't, that again, projectiles weren't impacting the movement pill and stuff like that. So that has all been cleared up, and I'm very happy because it's now a lot cleaner. All of the collision-like code that I have for my game in the framework is now so much better. Some functions literally reduced by 50% in size because I no longer have to make sure that I'm hitting the correct hurt box or pill. So yeah, good. Another thing that this does is this actually improves performance. Because if I have a trigger, let's grab a trigger. So if I grab a trigger, the trigger is set up so it only checks for overlaps with the pawn movement collision channel, which is the pill. So the pill is only one shape. So right now this trigger box only checks for this collision box, which is good because that's the only collision box I need. Previously, the trigger was also looking for hurt boxes, which means that, I mean, this monitor consists of probably like, I think 13 or so, 14 different collision boxes, which means that there were 14 times more things that the trigger had to check. So in terms of performance, the fact that the collision channels are now separated, big improvement to performance. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a big improvement, but it is a fair. I think it's important. I think it's important, very important, especially like this is gonna go up exponentially as more actors spawn in. Again, I was gonna talk about performance later. So let's continue with the rapid fire stuff. And the final thing I did, I mean, I did a lot of small things, but I'm just gonna talk about like the final thing that I did, the final big thing. Oh my god, my ability to speak is degrading. So let's go to any class that saves shit. I have completely reworked. I'm not completely reworked. I have changed the way the save system worked. I have talked about this before. The save system was not very good. I mean, the save system is good. It's the way that things were saved that was terrible. So the way I used to save things was I basically had I had arrays of different object types, and I was just shoving variables into those arrays. The problem with that, as I've talked about in the previous devlog, is that made it so that it was dependent. It was dependent on the order in which you saved your shit. So if I saved a few Boolean variables in a certain way, I had to also get them back in a certain way, which was very annoying. Which wasn't too bad with a single class, but if you had a savable class, and I then had a child class that also had its variables that need to be saved, that's when things got difficult, because that means I basically had to keep track of multiple classes and make sure that their order in which they reloaded their stuff was in the correct order. I have fixed that. Okay, so what I've done now is that I've now added a system that no longer uses separate arrays of certain data types. It is now just one giant binary array, like basically how save systems should work. So right here you can see an example of so this is a very complex, I mean not complex, but this class, the SK save test actor. This is the actor that I made purely to test the new save system. You can see that the way it works is that it grabs the archived objects. This is basically the binary for the object, and it then inserts. Oh no, that happens here. It then inserts variables inside of the array, and it then gives it a identifier. So here I'm inserting the save string. So save string is basically just a test variable for strings, and it would insert the string with a specific ID. And then when I reload the actor and I want to load the save status, it then right, and then here enter string. It then loads the string again. And as you can see, is I have the way the objects are inserted are in a different order than in here, because the order no longer matters. It no longer matters in which order I insert savable variables and then load savable variables. Absolutely does not matter. It only matters if it's the correct enter string, and I'm using defines for that, like making absolutely sure I'm not making any mistakes here. And I have changed every single actor that uses the save system to use this system, which took a very long time. It actually took me a lot longer than I expected. I thought it ended up taking 4 days, like 2 full days and 2 like semi-half days. So 3 days full work in total, basically. And I mean, yeah, it works. I'm very happy with it. It's way better. It is slower though. That's something I did notice. It is slower, but honestly, it's still fast. Like, it's still really fast. Loading save still takes only like 1 or 2 seconds, so it really isn't that big of a deal. But I no longer have like instant loads like it used to be. But whatever, that doesn't matter. So you might be wondering, how does this work? So yeah, you already see a lot of weird shit, so I'm gonna talk about it. Okay. This is the object that saves basically the binaries. And now, if you know your C++, so okay, let's first explain what it does. So insert entry, it uses this function right here to shove stuff into the memory. That's just how it works. The only thing that's different is the U class. U class first gets the path to the class, and then it saves the path class. And then when it loads it from that path. But yeah. Now, I might hear you say, if you know C++, why not use a template? The reason why I am not using a template for this, even though I could definitely use a template, is that I don't... Not all data types can just be shoved into the memory. Like, if you take a memory because if I were to make this a template, you could literally shove anything into the memory writer, and there are structs and there are also things that you just can't blindly shove into the memory writer. So things like arrays, like I actually had to make something special for arrays. But so yeah, this is why I didn't make a template. I just have every single data type that I allow to be shoved into the memory writer, and I basically just made a separate function for it, which again, technically I'm already using macros. So these two things here, these are macros, so it's you can see what's happening. So it's fine. Again, yeah, it's fine. So now I did use a template for arrays. So right here, I have a template for arrays. So this basically does the exact same thing, but then it just has an array. I think it is a kind of weird that you can't just shove an array into the memory writer. Like, you can't just shove an array of integers into the memory writer. It goes wrong for some reason, which I don't understand why. So I have to individually insert every array element, and for that I use a template. And the reason why I can use a template here is because this template then uses these functions, and if you use a data type that is not supported, the templated function won't compile anyway. So I could use templates here just fine. So yeah, that's that. There was another thing I want to talk about that quickly came to mind. I forgot, unfortunately. That's fine. Okay, so let's talk about performance. I actually have it right here. Frame rate is pretty bad. This is actually kind of like an overstatement. It's not pretty bad. It never drops below 60. So performance in terms of CPU is really good. In the package build, at least. I never drop below 120 frames per second on the CPU in the game. Great. That is basically perfect. Even with like 20 enemies, I don't drop below 120 frames per second. So CPU performance is really good. That's actually something I paid attention to. Unfortunately, GPU performance is a different story. Thankfully, fixing GPU performance is a lot easier than fixing bad CPU performance. So that is something I still need to work on. Probably lowering poly count, being more aggressive with LODs. I don't know, it's one of the final things that I still need to do this month, is seeing if I can get rid of the... There are basically like 1 or 2 fights that really drop the frame rate. And I need to just figure out what causes it. I mean, I know what causes it. I'm pretty sure it's shadows. Like, it's shadows, which is probably resulted by a high poly count. So yeah. And then there are just a few... So what remains is basically... I'm done with content. Content is fully done. I already talked about it in the beginning. I need to fix... Oh, I know what I was going to talk about. Yeah. Alright. So yeah. Fix final bugs. Like, fix the final few bugs. Fix GPU performance. And then test the game in the ship first and make sure it is stable. Those are the things that I still need to do. So let's talk about... Let's go to main menu. Because for main menu I can very easily go anywhere. Yeah, okay. So there's a small bug which I actually discovered with the movement system. If you are on a ramp and you run into a ceiling that is flat, you will run through it. Yeah, that's not very good. So yeah, I actually know what causes that. I just need to fix it. Another problem I'm having is with elevators. I actually had fixed this, but it had broken again. Oh yeah, this elevator is broken. I have to go to the secondary developer map. I can't... So, this is a bit difficult to explain, but I'm basically stuck. Sort of. I can't really move very... Like, going down works fine. Like, I can move perfectly fine going down. But when you go up in an elevator, you get, like, weirdly pushed into the ground. You can't... Yeah, here. I tried to move straight back, and you saw that I was basically, like, glitching sideways. The way... There are some small bugs related to movement, both in terms of player movement and terms of elevator movement, moving platform movement in general, that needs to be fixed. Another thing that I did, which was the thing I wanted to talk about but forgot, but then remembered, I've changed the color of... Oh, these need a sound when you pick them up. Okay, well that's another one for the list. Whatever. So, it used to be cyan, pink, and then purple for the keycards. That didn't really make a lot of sense, especially because pink and purple are very similar in color. The reason why I use those 3 colors is basically because those were still available. Because, for example, yellow lights, orange lights are also used to indicate non-accessible areas, so it's like a bit iffy. I mean, the color is different. This is orange and non-accessible areas are yellow, and there is a difference in color, but it is a bit more. But the reason I have decided to change it because it's now a lot clearer and a lot more obvious what the keycard colors are. Before they looked too similar to each other, and it now looks better. So yeah. So yeah, that's something that has been fixed. And that is pretty much it. So yeah, a lot of backend stuff this month. I mean, the foundation is really good. Like, it's shaping out to be a really good. And once I'm done with the foundation, I mean, I am done with the foundation, but the fact that I could not have started work on like next levels without first fixing a lot of the weird stuff in the foundation, such as the save system, such as the fact that a lot of the actors and gameplay objects were still blueprint based instead of C++. So yeah, what was I gonna talk about? So yeah, I can now work on new levels. I can now work on new contents without getting into depth. So what I'm talking about technical depth is a term you hear more frequently. Term technical depth is basically that it's basically bad code, and the more stuff you build upon that bad code, the more work it is to fix the bad code. This is basically why I couldn't really start on new levels or new content before I had fixed the technical depth, because otherwise I was basically putting myself further in depth by working it. There is pretty much no technical depth remaining. I can't think of anything. Pretty much all of the things that I need to fix are irrelevant on the amount of like child classes. Like, yeah, my brain is running away. Okay, I am done. Like, let's just say the final funny things. Enemies can't jump for some reason. Enemies can't jump in the shipped version. This is probably the weirdest bug. So yeah, elevators still need work. I've already talked about this. Yeah, the frame rate. Player can glitch into ramps. And oh yeah, I need to add some extra functionality for teleporters in terms of like teleporters automatically turning off after you've gone through them. Stuff like that. And that's basically it. So yeah, this was a very hectic, weird, and technical devlog. But yeah, that's basically what I worked on this month. So I hope next month will probably be the announcement that the shipped build is stable and good to go for to go out. And then I will start working on stuff like getting it distributed, the demo. So yeah, look out for that. Out.